Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Lou, but welcome back to what some people are calling episode 9 of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek. This is a podcast for Trekkies, Trekkers, and everything in between, as you know so far. We are brought together as a group of friends from both sides of the pond with a little obsession about a game called Star Trek Fleet Command. As you know, this is not just a podcast for Star Trek Fleet Command players, but this is going to be all about Star Trek, and we're also going to dive into the cultural differences in between the Brits and the Yanks as well as we discuss that topic. We want this to be a show that you all get involved in, as we talk about all the time, so please suggest any topics and suggestions, anything that you want the panel to talk about. Let us know in our Discord or in the comments of any particular podcast platform that you listen on, and consider becoming a member of the podcast. If you go to itslube.com, there is an option there to become a member. What we are trying to do, and I'll throw this out there, I'm trying to get the name Brits and Yanks Talk Trek trademarked. So this is what we're working towards at the moment. That trademark is going to cost about £300 UK money. So that's currently what we're saving up for. I haven't told the team that, but I want to see if we can trademark the name just so that nobody can ever steal it. I don't know why anybody would, but just so nobody can steal it. And share this out with a friend. Anybody, just share it out with one friend, somebody from your alliance, somebody at work, school, anything like that you think might be interested. But really consider becoming a member. We are offering little memberships now of just literally $3 a month. So you can come and join us at itslube.com and be part of the team and be part of the production of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek. Obviously, I'm here, as you know. My name is Lou, but let's talk about who we've got with us today. We've got Mr. Perfection himself. We've got Silvers. How was your day been, buddy? And how are you?
Oh, my day's been great. I'm doing great. How are you doing, Lou?
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much. Yeah, nice long day. But obviously, finishing off talking to you lot always makes my day. Could I have said that more sarcastically? No, I couldn't. Stewie, we've got the storyteller do with us. How are you, Stu Pot? Nice to have you back after a couple of little absences.
Hi there.
Don't you love I love the emotion put into it. How excited he is to be back on Brits and Yanks Talk Trek this evening as we do it. We've got the king of the graphic himself. We have got Candy back with us as well. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good too. It was a pretty busy day, but glad to be out of work.
Yeah, wet calming down a bit yet?
No, it has, but today was the last day of the month as of the recording. So last day of the month is always a pretty busy day.
Ugh, horrible time. And I will want to make a little shout out to our absentee. Minnie is currently dealing with a family issue, so we are sending all of our love from everybody here on the panel while she deals with that, and she'll be back on future shows. So thank you so much and welcome on in, everybody. We are going to dive in, as we do. We're going to start off with our Star Trek Fleet Command topic. And before I do that, last time I posed a question to the panel that nobody could answer about officers in the game that were launched and then subsequently had their names changed within the game. We got that conversation from Kira changing into Changeling Kira following the espionage series of events during the Deep Space Nine arc, but Minnie and Silvers couldn't think about other names of officers that had changed. And there was quite a few, but it was one major change. And I know this was an absolute pain in the backside for a member of our panel. So, Stewie, do you want to tell us who changed and how much you loved the fact that they made this change?
It was the Borg when they went from of 10 to of 11 and basically ruined my life.
So it was a nightmare, wasn't it? Because obviously we have the STFC officer tool, STFC officer tool, which obviously allows you to migrate versions, so you can go from one version to the other to update all of your officer records. And obviously the way that cleverly pulled forward was it did it with a lookup of the names. I'm not going to go into the technical detail because I am that technical. I don't want to bore you with all my technical knowledge of Excel. We don't want to do that. Everybody's sniggering in the background. But yeah, so the Borg officers were the other one when basically we released a gas officer and we released an ore officer and we ran out of numbers. So it was, what on earth are they going to do? And then 11 of 11.
Zero.
Zero. Somebody did suggest that actually at one point. Somebody did suggest that we should have 0 of 11. Sorry, 0 of 10, and that will be able to do it. But they didn't. They released Borg Barrett as the crystal mining officer and changed everything from of 10 to of 11. So that was the name change to answer that question that we posed last time. A couple of people got it on the Discord and in the comments and stuff. So well done to you if you got that. But the topic today, we're going to keep it quite up to date for us. We are going to be talking about the Mirror Universe. So the Mirror Universe was launched a couple of months ago at time of recording. So it was launched in June. So June was month 1, and then July of 2024 was month 2. And what I want to talk about really is like the good, the bad, the ugly. What do we like about it? What has our experience been over the last couple of months? Is there anything that we'd like to see changed? And I'll start with it. Now, obviously, I am, as I've mentioned previously, I'm a G6 player and I have a Selkie. And I point that out. I know it's a minor. You might think, why on earth is he talking about minors? As a G6 player and managing your refinery, and that's one of the key parts of it, your refinery has a research where you basically maintain control of your progression within the Mirror Universe. So that particular node of research, which is really early doors, it only uses common mirror dust to be able to upgrade. That controls how much of the raw Trillium A and the raw Trillium D that you actually need to use to be able to maintain your pulls on your refinery. And they are segmented into generation. So there is a G4 section, there's a G5 section, there's a G6 section. So anything up to refinery level 4 is considered G4. Anything up to refinery level 8 is considered G5, and anything above that is considered G6. And a quick tip from me is, pending what generation you are in, if you want to keep the Mirror Universe pretty relaxed and pretty simple for you, it's not to migrate it to your current generation until you're ready to go hard on the Mirror Universe. So if you're a G5 player, I would suggest potentially leaving your refinery at level 4 until you're in a position where you can grind out enough to be able to move up your refinery. It's a big thing. But where my experience comes with the Mirror Universe is with the Selkie itself. So the Selkie is a G6 miner that you pick up at Ops 62. It's an independent miner. It's the equivalent of like the Nova. It's the G6 Nova ship. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to mine Trillium, providing, again, that you've done the research, which G6 offers massive, massive bonuses of research for mining. It allows me to sort of get about 1.2, 1.3 million in about 15 minutes. And obviously my timer now is well over 25 minutes because of the addition of the District 56 building, increasing your time. So I'm able to go, and because I haven't upgraded my refinery, my pulls going out and doing one load of Trillium A, one load of Trillium D, it keeps me up to date for about a week. So I have sort of sunsetted that feature at the moment, which sounds madness after 2 months, but I'm quite happy with the refined Trillium D that I'm able to actually get to maintain all the pulls. I'm doing everything that I want to do, and it's keeping me pretty well stocked to be able to do it. So even though we're only 2 months in, G6 players, keeping your refinery at the upper end of G5, you can sort of make that grind very, very simple and make it a half an hour a week job, and you're pretty much done. So that's my experience of the Mirror Universe, and it's one reason that I like it. So I'm getting lots and lots of reward for very, very little time and effort. Now, I'm the only G6 player on the panel, so I know that we're going to have contrasting views on this when we go around. So I really like the Mirror Universe, and again, that's because my effort to payout ratio is very, very high. I have to put such minimal effort in for pretty high reward. So if we start working down in ops level, let's go to you, Stewie. Obviously, as a G5 player, it's been launched a couple of months now. What's your initial reaction to the Mirror Universe? What's your thoughts, and how are you playing it yourself?
Well, before I say that, I just want to draw the attention to the fact that you just couldn't bring yourself to say that the Selkie was the G6 North Star, could you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely, it's not an off. Do you know, with the cargo on it? The cargo on it's terrible. I mean, I've got
exactly.
Oh god, I've got a 58 miner, so a G5 faction miner. That's got a cargo of something like, I showed it off on stream the other week. It's like 80 million or something like that. And this and my Selkie's got like 1.2 million. The cargo is atrocious. Absolutely.
It's the G6 North Star. Well done. Well done. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad we're on the same page now.
I wish it was 20 quid.
Excellent.
I wish it was 20 quid like a North, but like a North Star. Sorry, mate. Go on.
So, Mirror, yeah, I like it. I like it. It's good that you can pretty much set or you know how long it's going to take you to do. Because even with this extended time you get in there, it's roughly 20 minutes. So you can set yourself out for 20 minutes. Admittedly, it is a bit of a pain if you suddenly get someone at the door, or someone suddenly rings, and you're halfway through your run, and you're like, right,
Yeah.
okay, then there's no getting out of that. Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
But I think that's a small um, a small penalty, small pain, by comparison. To me, the biggest pain and the thing that I don't like is the tokens that are required to travel between the systems. I can understand there being some tokens for entry.
The
That I
rift,
can
the rift
understand.
keys.
Yeah, the rift keys. I can understand there being tokens for entry. Your 3 entries a week, every 3 days. Sorry, and I can actually understand the gold tokens for using the shortcuts.
Yeah.
You want to get somewhere quicker, you use the gold tokens. But all the other ones, you don't. Why? Why? We don't want them. Take them away.
I
Just
agree, because you're gated by time anyway. Because if you wanted to go
yeah.
deep into the system, it's going to take you a lot of time impulsing between rift points to actually be able to get to where you want to be anyway. So you've been penalised for time, but then you're also being charged and restricted on how far and how many times that you can go because of the amount of rift keys that are actually sourced.
Yeah, and it's also it's making it's punishing you for a certain bit of strategy as well. Like, you want to leave early, you go through extract points, but a lot of people don't, because it's going to cost them their rare tokens to rift keys to get through. So they sit there. Either cloaked, or if they're on a semi-friendly server, they just sit there waiting for the timer to go down, and it's literally wasting time.
Yeah.
Um, I'm at that point in my runs where I get about halfway through my time before I'm almost at zero hull. So I'm just using rare rift keys to go back to the extract point to go out. Why? Just
No.
let us navigate through within the systems freely. I'd say.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the mirror universe that's very, very unique to it, whereby if you die to any other PvE hostile outside of the mirror universe, all the cargo that you've attained, you take home. Whereas if you die in the mirror universe, anything that's physically in your cargo, so this is excluding chests, anything in your cargo is lost to space. So you've got to manage your hull, haven't you? And think, can I squeak another one out? Do I risk it? Do I not risk it? Do I
Well,
go home?
I am literally looking at the last 4 logs to see how much hull has been taken from each one, work out a rough average, see how much I've got left, and then I go, right, I can afford to hit 2 more. I know I can afford to hit 2 more,
Yeah.
and still be safe, to literally to maximize the run. But while we're talking about the rift keys and all that, I would like to give a shout out to BK Bearded about this, because over a year ago, in our little private chat, you were there, Luke. He came up with an idea for Badlands. Okay,
He did.
This thing that he thought was basically the Badlands where the marquee exists, etc., etc. And one of the things that he said was that it would promote this PvP element where you had to literally traverse the systems to go from one to another to another to another. And we all went, that's a great little idea, because it opens up the opportunity for PvP, this, that, and the other. And here we are now, over a year later, and we've got something very similar to that.
Absolutely.
Albeit that we've got these blasted tokens that we could do without.
And the tokens, that is potentially what's going to stop people going, because all the systems are under fog of war, so you can't see them unless you're physically in the system. And it's going to stop people going out and doing hunting, like people that want to go out there and hunt OC, because there is no protected cargo within the mirror universe either. Again, another mechanic that doesn't present itself anywhere else in the game. So it was designed as a PvP battleground. But when you think that you can't look in the system unless you want to use your NX-01, which again you could use to peek into all the systems, but then you're spending juice potentially for absolutely nothing for that particular ship. And then you've got to maybe go around 5, 6, 7, 8 systems to go and actually find somebody. Whereas if it was free to move around, you could spend 15 minutes looking around at no cost to yourself, go as high as you wanted to go and try and pop somebody.
Yeah, well, you'd have the entry fee, wouldn't you? That limited amount that you get, your three every 3 days.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to then choose. Well, how do you want to use that? Do you want to use that in a manner that's going to almost guarantee you're going to get your stuff back, or do you use them to go hunting instead, and go that route?
Mhm.
I went all American there route.
Oh, routing.
Routing. Hanging around with these Yanks too long.
But overall, I mean, your thoughts on the Mirror universe are pretty positive. I mean, how do you play it? I'm assuming, obviously, you're hitting hostiles. I mean, how many is 3 runs every 3? I mean, we can get an extra run every 3 days now, can't we? With the District 56 building, we do get 100 tokens a day from that. And a good thing about that is that it's not restricted by the cap. So it's not restricted by the cap of tokens. So you can technically, in my position where I don't go very, very often, I've got loads of entry points. I've got loads of rift keys. But again, that's a very, very unique to G6 luxury.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I've recently, as you know, I put on my big boy pants, so I've now got a ship that allows me to go to a system where, luckily, even coming out halfway through the run with due to hull, in 3 runs I can get enough of the A and D. From the same hostiles to do it, because I'm using the loot crew so that I can maximize getting some A from them, you see, and then using the loot boxes to top up on the D, and I'm getting enough to do my pulls with that. So I'm in a quite a nice little position. It's probably half the reason why I am enjoying it that much is that I've hit that nice little sweet spot.
Yeah, and I have heard that you do need a
better.
top up. I have heard that you do need a top up of the D as well. So anyway, moving on. Candy, moving down. In fact, let's go to you, Silvers. Let's go to you, Silvers, because obviously me and Stu have been relatively positive, and mainly that's on payout and obviously the ingenuity of the actual grind itself. Now, Silvers has a slightly different take on the Mirror Universe. I know that from obviously listening to him in streams. But Silvers, what's your take on the MU? I mean, obviously you were super interested at the start, but what's your thoughts on the Mirror Universe?
So I think most people know that I've been fairly negative about the Mirror Universe, and that's for a couple of design reasons that I didn't like from the start, and still don't like to this day, even though I have gone into the Mirror Universe a couple of times during this past month.
For events, though, it wasn't you didn't go there to actively do the grind. You've been to do events.
Yeah, I only went in because of the events. It was on those weekends where we had the hit hostiles and dock trillium events. I did it for the event store currency, not because I wanted to engage in the Mirror Universe. But essentially, there are a couple of reasons that I don't like it. Stu, we talked about the keys. I think it's a bit ridiculous in terms of how all of those tokens work, and the fact that you have to impulse in between every one. I'm fine with having Stu's idea, where it's just an entry to get into the space, and then you're free to roam about. I would also be okay with still spending all the keys to get to a certain place, but I can just spend it all at once and just warp there initially, where I'm all at once. I'm spending the rift keys to get in and to traverse between the systems as necessary, and everything. I just spend it all at once in a bulk click, and it sends.
Even if it automated the impulse, I mean, you're not asking it just to warp it to the systems like it does anywhere else in the game. But if it sort of took you clicked on a system that was 7 systems away, it used a rift, it impulsed you across, it used a rift, it impulsed you across. Do you know what I mean? So you could literally know that, right, okay, in 6 minutes, I'm going to be in my system, rather than spending those 6 minutes physically watching your ship impulse from one side of a system to another.
I mean, that works too. I really was going for the warp idea, but if the game is hard set on impulsing, then whatever. You can take my time off the clock, and that's one of the other things I don't like is you're on a time limit, so it's not like you can send your ship to the token system, grind for a few minutes, then get called away. You have to be on point, focused, and in some aspects of the game, that's a good thing. But I think this is just a little bit too much time investment that is required all at once.
Because, I mean, just to throw a counter argument in there, something that you do enjoy, and you've openly said you do a hell of a lot, is wave defense. And wave defense is the same. You can't sit in there and just pause your wave defense. Once you're there for 15 minutes while you're getting through your waves, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it takes you to actually finish the wave that you're capable of killing. So what is it about specifically the mirror universe you think that means that you don't want to focus that time? Is it because it's a solo grind, it's not a team sport? Is it something about that turned you off a little bit to it?
I think the time was just one factor in among a multitude of other factors. It wasn't the only thing that turned me off. I certainly do enjoy the team aspect of waves, getting together with members of my alliance and be able to repeatedly beat higher level waves to get the credits and work towards goals from the Section 31 store.
Yeah.
So I understand your point of view from that aspect.
Absolutely. So obviously it's slightly more negative towards it, still not really playing in it, but obviously then not getting the benefits of the rewards either. And again, this is something that we've talked about when we've talked loops a hell of a lot. You've got to do what you enjoy. The whole point of this is that it's a game and you do the bits that you actually want to do and you want to play in. And it's not about doing absolutely everything. We've covered that it's not possible to do every single thing in every single day. It's not possible to do it. Would I recommend people engage in the mirror universe if you are 40 plus and able to do it? Yes, I would. I think the rewards are good. But I totally understand Silvis's perspective and a couple of little gripes from it as well. So, Candy, what about yourself? How do you play in the Mirror Universe? I don't think I've ever spoke to you about it. Do you play in it? Do you enjoy it? What is it that you... what's your thoughts on the Mirror Universe after 2 months of playing it?
I've enjoyed what I've been able to take advantage of so far in there. I mean, periodically when I have enough keys saved up, I'll kind of test myself and venture as far as I can into the into the map to see what exactly is out there. Kind of do a little bit of like almost self-discovery in the Mirror Universe, see what I can do hostiles wise at certain levels. Try and see, like, for a little bit I was trying to find the deeper systems that had the faction rep systems in there to kind of see how much I could take advantage of that, since I was at the time I was going for my third and final Federation lock for the 1 billion to clinch all three. But and that's I didn't end up finding the lower systems, but I did find the kind of the earlier systems that did have them. I didn't even realize that they were in the systems that had the surveys in them. So it was kind of a trial by error, like wandering around the Mirror Universe. But I've enjoyed it myself. And I usually do maybe one or two runs every day or every other day just to bank up some Trillium A to cash those in for research in the R&D center, just kind of keep that progression going at my own pace and kind of seeing how I'm able to take advantage of that and from those aspects.
Absolutely, because I mean, see, the two main takeaways from the Mirror Universe are obviously the research and the specific pulls. So I suppose there's a third one, which is reputation, which I'll come on to in a second. But the mirror research is arguably the best research tree in the game. And if you was going to engage in the Mirror Universe for one thing and one thing only, and it was that research tree, it is pretty stout. The bonuses in there are relevant. Every single level offers you a bonus of something, and there are efficiencies in there for likes of, again, going back to G6, the first ever Sigma efficiency research. Sigma being once you hit 61, you no longer spend standard pass steel, titanium, and dilithium on buildings and ships. For G6, you spend Sigma steel, titanium, and dilithium on ships. So, and they've had no efficiencies in terms of like buildings. So it's nice to see some Sigma stuff come in to the Mirror Universe, and more will come obviously as G6 begins to mature. And that's obviously one big thing. And obviously the other thing, there's the sourcing of the officers, likes of Phlox, Trip, Archer. That's good sourcing for them. Good's maybe not the right word, but decent sourcing for those. They've added some efficiency bundles into the Trillium D store where you can basically sunset. I keep using that word. It's a great word. You can sunset your Voyager loop completely now using Xborg and then using the Trillium refines, because you're able to get all the stuff for your artifacts. pulls from there. So there's some really good things. Obviously, it's the source of Syndicate XP as well in the same efficiency bundle for the Mantis. Really good. But the reputation one is the one that I just want to finally close off on, because Silvers made a really valid point. He made a really super valid point when I was talking about this a stream or two ago, or it might have even been on a pod. But we was talking about that the reputation systems in the Mirror Universe are the best reputation systems in the game. But there is one thing that doesn't take into account that Silvers opened my eyes to. And that's how to actually grind rep the most effectively given the time. Because Mirror Universe, as a rule, you send one ship. Silvers, tell me why you've had more success outside the Mirror Universe, even using hostiles with less rep per hostile, as it were.
Well, I don't know about the less rep per hostile, because I am definitely hitting middle of G5 hostiles that have a good amount of rep per hostile. But I did do a comparison run in the Mirror Universe, hitting the surveys for the rep with maximum exos on my tier 10 Pylum, max loot crew, fleet commander set up the correct way, all that. I got around 25 million in Federation rep in that 20 minutes, give or take. In the same amount of time, using 3 ships, same exos, all in the same system in Klingon G5 space, I can get 150 million rep.
Because you're using multiple ships, you're taking advantage of multiple bonuses, and obviously it's not costing you anything to go and do it. It's not. So, I mean, the argument for this is, if you was only going to use one ship, you would have done better in that time in the Mirror Universe. Is that what you're saying? But because you're able to use 3 ships quite comfortably, or more ships, you can use that time more effectively for reputation grinding in standard systems.
Yes, but I will say that I wouldn't choose to do that. I'd rather spend the hour using 3 of my ships and spending more in repairs, because the exos are limited, and I'm choosing not to engage further in the amalgam loop to continue getting those exos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a limited resource for me. So I'm using them to the best of my ability. So I'm trying to get as much rep as I can in that hour that the exo is active. So I relocate up to the system. I'm constantly repairing. I'm staying focused for that hour. Whereas if I use those same exos in the Mirror Universe, then I'm only getting the effect on one ship. I have to have warp and impulse time to actually get to the system, and then I have to either wait until the timer's up, or go back to an extract system to get out and recall back, and then maybe spend more tokens to get back in to get another run within that hour, and it's just not worth it.
No, and I totally get that. I think it's really good to see these different points of view. And again, all of this is going to come down to, I'm going to throw my standard caveat out there. All these results that we're talking about are going to be very dependent on your individual account. Your research, your officers, your exos that you've got available to you are all going to yield completely different results. So the best thing for you to do is to see which one you prefer by trying both, see which one yields you the most, see which one you enjoy doing the most. Remember, it's a game. We'll throw that in there again. But then just make sure that you're doing the bit that and you enjoy the most. But I mean, that's the Mirror Universe, sort of a really quick whistle-stop tour of that, what we think about it. In terms of things that we would like to see change, is there anything other than what we've already talked about? Is there anything that you'd like to see added to the Mirror Universe? Because I'd have liked it if, like, the triangle worked backwards, or do you know what I mean? So there was like total differences in the way that your ships operated to make it even more of a strategic thing. So to add a bit more strategery to it, so you had to think a little bit more. But is there anything that anybody else can think of that they would like to see added specifically to the Mirror Universe in terms of like an expansion, as opposed to like a change for the currencies and the Rift tokens and things?
I'd like them to add a gold token route along the top.
Really good shout. So what she was referring to is the premium, basically like the Mirror Universe, what they're called? super highways that you've got, so you've been able to get around, but being able to go around the top as well. That's a really good shout. Yeah, really good one. Any more?
This isn't necessarily an expansion, but you mentioned that you use your Selkie for mining in the mirror universe, and that's basically all that you do. I would like to see that research get buffed a little bit so that G4 and G5 actually do have the option of mining within their grade for what is relevant to their refinery, where it's not just a waste and you're essentially told this is a hostile loop until you get to 62 when you can build the Selkie.
No, really good shout. I totally agree. It would be nice to add a little bit of parity to it, because I suppose, I mean, things in G6, there's so few people there being able to take advantage of it that these things are engineered. I think the mirror universe was keyed towards G5. I think it's very difficult for a G4. I think it's pretty much sunsetted for G6. I think this content was designed really majorly around upper 40s into the 50s. I think that's what the mirror universe was targeted, which makes sense. That's where they're trying to get the bulk of the game too. So that's the mirror universe. Really enjoyed that conversation. Obviously, again, if you've got any comments or anything on that, let us know in the Discord or on the podcast comments and things like that. But we are going to move on to one of our favorite sections. We are going to move on to Freedom and Reason. Yes, Freedom and Reason is here, and we have got one. It's going to be quite educational today. I'm quite looking forward to this. It's going to be quite an educational piece. We're going to talk about the differences in terms of how laws are passed within our two different cultures, because they're very different. We have different setups of government, of like hierarchies, of how these sort of things work. And I think it'd be good for us to understand how the other side works, because I know nothing. I mentioned to Silvers once, I don't understand like the fact that you've got Senate, you've got Congress, obviously then you've got the president, who's your figurehead, who's your gaffer, basically, who's in charge of things. And I don't understand the relationship between all those different things. You've also got the likes of different types of law. You've got ones that cover the whole country. You've got ones that covers particular states and things. And I don't understand that philosophy. And obviously over here in the UK, we do have a little bit of what we call devolution, where rules can be made by different countries from within the UK and different territories within the UK. But predominantly, a lot of it's done very, very straightforward. So let's start there. Silvers, explain a little bit about your system in terms of making laws and how stuff's passed in the US and how it all works and how it all comes together.
Okay, so from a very broad overview, there's three different types of government. You'll have the federal government, which creates laws for the entire country. You'll have the state government, which creates laws for that particular state. And you have the local government, which is your city council, mayor, that kind of stuff. Focusing on the federal government, there are three branches of the government that have their own checks and balances to make sure that one or the other doesn't do something that is bad for the American people. And those branches are the legislative, which is the Congress, the executive, which is the president, the White House, and the judicial, which is the Supreme Court.
Okay, so obviously lots of different moving parts there. So let's say we wanted to pass a law. Let's talk about I want to keep something a little bit more lighthearted. Jaywalking. So that's not allowed in some states. It's allowed in some states. It's a law that varies, doesn't it, from state to state? So let's say Florida, I'm making this up, doesn't allow jaywalking. So you're not allowed to walk across the street unless it's a designated crossing point. If they wanted to change that, whose approval would they need to be able to do that?
Well, in the state case, it would be the individual states' legislative Congress. I don't know if it's a Congress at the state level, but essentially your state government will make the laws that apply to your state, and you'll select your own senators and representatives for your state. But when you consider how laws are made at the federal level, it starts in the Congress, which is comprised of two components: the Senate and the House of Representatives. The House is made up of 435 representatives, and that's supposed to best align with the population of the United States. So, states that have a higher population get more representatives in the House of Representatives.
Okay.
So, like California, for example, California is the most populous state in the United States. It has 52 representatives out of that 435. So it's a decent chunk of representatives. Whereas some states like Alaska or the Dakotas, North and South, they only have one representative, and that's based on their population.
Being so low. So, like, California's got 52. Did you say 52?
Yes.
So it's got 52 representatives. And so is California broken up into 52 little chunks that each one represents, or is it just the whole state itself has 52 and they represent the entire state collectively?
Yes. Each state legislature will draw up districts for the state. So California would have 52 districts based on the population and the politics in that area. So it's referred to as gerrymandering, where the lines are drawn kind of in a weird way, but it works with how the people are likely to vote, and that's to make sure that the representative that you want or the party that you want gets voted in.
Right. Okay. That sounds a bit backwards to me. It sounds a bit like cheating.
Yeah, it's somewhat kind of frowned upon, but not really in the United States. I don't know. It's
politics. It's politics.
It's absolutely. Yeah, need to say more about that. So, in terms of how these people are elected, then, before I sort of give you a brief rundown on the UK, how are the likes of the people in the Senate, House of Representatives, how are these people selected?
It's all by the people that are being represented. So, if you're thinking California, the people in that district would vote for a representative for that district. When it comes to the Senate, there are only 100 senators. There's 2 for each state, 50 states, 2 senators apiece. And that is to help the minority. So regardless of what state you're in, every state has 2 senators. So again, the state legislature will drop the line. So whatever part of the state you're in, you'll vote for a senator to represent your part of the state, and somebody else will vote for a senator to represent their part of the state. So that makes up the 2 parts of the Congress, the House and the Senate. And laws will start in the House, on the House floor. They'll get discussed, written up. They have to pass through the House, and then they go to the Senate, and the Senate will talk about it, vote on it, and if it passes to the Senate, then it gets sent to the president, who is the head of the executive branch. So this is a new branch now. We went from the legislative to the executive branch, and the president will sign off on that law and essentially make that law into
law.
Into law.
Yeah. Okay. So then, how is the president decided then? Because obviously the presidents are completely separate elections to you, and again, I'll explain why that's slightly different to us in a second. But how is your president? Obviously, that's very pertinent. We've obviously got an election this year in 2024. How is the president decided?
So it's essentially it's a kind of a ground up process where you have a series of kind of candidates, usually on both. So we would mainly like the 2-party system that we have right now is a majority, but anybody who wants to run for president can. But there's for the major parties, there's a process called primaries where all the all the head contenders will go and kind of and put their names out there, and states throughout the years or throughout the year will have their own primary to select who they want their like presidential candidates to be, and it just kind of works its way across the country through a dated process that's been pre-assigned. And then as those candidates get narrowed down, they can, and other people can choose to withdraw at any point. And once they get to a point where we have in some cases in the past where we have like a handful of candidates on both sides, they'll go ahead and debate. They kind of give the people an idea of what they're all about. And then when it comes to another point where ultimately you have your national conventions where the two big parties, Republicans and the Democrats, will select their nominee for president from those people based upon who they think has the best chance of becoming president. And once they do that, then in the fall of that election year, the American people will decide who they would wish to be president. And depending upon the number of electoral votes that the specific state has,
is this the collegiate thing that I've seen somewhere?
I believe so.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah.
The way that Candy's talked about how the nominees are selected. The way that the voting actually happens is that it happens in each state, and essentially the winner of that state in terms of population is how the numbers get added up. So I live in Kansas, so if I vote in Kansas and one party wins, it's usually the Republicans. It's a red state, but we'll say that the Republicans win Kansas, then they get 10 electoral college votes. And the electoral college is a way of representing the minority as well, making sure that the smaller states still have a voice. It's confusing. I get it.
So
but
complicated. Why can't it just be first past the post? I mean, everybody gets one vote and they've got to tick a box. Why can't it just be like that?
Because
go change it, Silvers. I'm sure you can change that. Just go change it.
Yeah, I totally have that power. The electoral college is made up of 538 electors, which are spread across the states. It's essentially the number of representatives plus number of senators per state. So California would have 54 electors because they have 52 representatives and 2 senators. So you've got the 435 representatives plus 100 senators, and then you add 3. The District of Columbia gets 3 votes for the electoral college. So they're not technically a state, but that's where the capital is. And so to win the election, the president or the nominee would have to win 270 electoral votes across the states. So Kansas is got 10 electoral votes. So whoever wins Kansas will get 10 electoral votes, and if you add all those up between all the states, if you manage to get over 270, then you'll win the election.
God, that does sound bloody confusing. That sounds really, really strange. I mean, whistle stop tour of obviously how all that sort of stuff works and how your setup is. I mean, to go to ours, so obviously in the UK, we do have some similarities, as you was talking about the different houses that you've got with obviously your senators, the House of Representatives, and things like that. Ours is quite similar. So whereby we are broken up in the UK. So this is Northern Ireland, Scotland, and England, and Wales. We're broken up into 650. They're broken up into 650. We call them constituencies. So 650 constituencies that have. So we have 650 members of Parliament because our presiding system is called Parliament. And those 650 representatives of the 650 constituencies, they are basically individually elected by their constituents. So again, very, very similar to what you were saying. So you might have somebody from 5 different parties running in that particular election, and whoever gets the most votes from that particular constituency becomes the member of Parliament. They go down to Westminster, and then they sit in what's known as the House of Commons. So the House of Commons, very, very old system, literally hundreds and hundreds of years old. Obviously, the way that it works in terms of the Constitution, and that House of Commons, they are the people with the majority of the power within this country. Whoever has a majority, so whoever wins the most seats from different parties. So, for example, in this country, for the longest of times, the 2 main parties are the Conservatives and Labour, and basically the majority is just swung in between those two for decades now. We have had the odd where we've not had a full majority within the House of Commons, whereby you've had to form a coalition between the main party and then a smaller party to build up to a majority. And whoever has that majority of the largest party that's then elected into the House of Commons, the leader of that becomes our Prime Minister. So the leader of the party becomes our Prime Minister, who is in essence the guy who is obviously technically in charge of the country. And I put that in inverted commas. The House of Commons, they debate anything that wants changing into law. So if somebody wants to change something, and any member of Parliament can do this, they issue what's called a bill. So a bill is then read within the House of Commons. It's then debated. People can then suggest amendments to that particular bill. And then once that final bill has been drafted, it's then voted upon, and again, a clear first past the post. If it gets a majority vote and more people vote for it than don't vote for it, it then gets passed in the House of Commons. That's not the end of it, though. It doesn't get passed into law once the House of Commons, the elected leaders of our country, make that decision. It then goes off to another house. So we've talked about the House of Commons. It then moves to what's known as the House of Lords. Now, the House of Lords are a non-elected house. These are people who have been nominated to receive a really high honour and become a lord or a lady or a dame or something like that. So they're able to basically, they sit in a separate house to the House of Commons. The bill comes to the House of Lords. They do exactly the same. So they debate that law. Stewie, what's your thoughts on the House of Lords system? What do you think about it? Because there's a lot of thing in our country, isn't there, about whether the House of Lords is really a necessity, isn't there? And that's coming even more to the forefront recently, that it's not fit for purpose. But what's your thoughts on it?
I think it's just a bunch of old people making a lot of noise a lot of the time. And I think you said it there, they're not voted in there as such. They're nominated, and they have their own ways in there. And I don't pretend to understand it fully myself, to be honest. And I don't think I ever really want to understand it. It is just... I think it's an extra layer that's unnecessary.
I agree.
But then again, that seems to be par for the course with politics in general when it comes to stuff like that.
I agree.
Incidentally, I do need to add at this point, if you really want to get a decent understanding for how laws get passed in the States, watch Legally Blonde 2. Okay, because allegedly, I've been told, I haven't seen it myself, obviously. Someone told me, I overheard someone speaking about it. And she comes up with a Bill of Rights, apparently, a bill that she wants to get passed. And it shows you the whole process of it all. And it was quite...
I mean, you can't go for it, can you? Because, I mean, being bald, you are envious of anybody that talks about a decent hair colour, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? You've got to think about these things, haven't you? You're jealous of people with an actual head of hair.
I'm so over that. It's untrue. I don't care.
No.
Rumors are going to stick.
It's definitely not a rumour. So obviously this goes to the House of Lords. The House of Lords then have their deliberation on it. They're able to voice amendments. They decide whether they want to pass it or fail it. If they don't vote on it, it goes back to the House of Commons with the Lords amendments. The House of Commons would then debate the changes, send it back to the House of Lords, and until it's passed both houses, that's the point where our laws are technically given what's known as royal assent. So before anything gets passed into law, it would then go to the current reigning monarch. So currently, obviously, Charles III. So Charles III would then basically see the bill and he would then sign it off. Now, this is, again, another one of those layers, isn't it, Stewie? Because he is not constitutionally able to say no. In theory, he has the power to say that's not happening, but constitutionally, he just signs the form.
Yeah, I mean it's quite strange when you think about the little show that they've recently gone through with the new new government,
Opening of
where
Parliament, yeah.
yeah, and he goes in there and he literally reads out all of the things that are going to change, but he doesn't write that.
No.
He's given it. It's basically what the government, the new incoming government, have done, and he's just sitting there reading off a list, saying, "So they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and they're going to do this." And
My
that,
government,
and that. And you're
my
thinking,
government, my government are going to
Yeah,
do this.
yeah.
And just to add a bit of context to this, so it's not known as a King's Speech. So at the opening of any Parliament, any new parliamentary session, or obviously when a new government comes into power, in olden times, before this was the parliamentary process, the king would then sit down and say, right, your job is to do A, B, and C. Go and do it. And he would make those decisions, or she would make those decisions and tell the government what to go and do. It's now the other way around. The government say, right, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, and they get the king to read it. Basically, just to tick an old pomp and ceremony box to decide that that's now been done. But again, we've got two layers there with the House of Commons and obviously the royal assent process, where it's
I was going to say you've kind of got an extra step in there that isn't really required.
Well, I'm finding it really amusing that it was 5-6 minutes ago, Lube turned around and said to you two, "Wow, your system's really complicated," and he's now just described this, and I'm thinking, "Damn."
Yeah, no kidding.
It's
Like the House of Commons and the House of Lords, that's basically the House of Representatives and the Senate, right? It you might they might work kind of differently. The numbers of representatives, like we've got 435, you've got 650. That's kind of different, but in the end, it's the same idea.
Yeah.
But in the United States, the president actually has the ability to veto a law, and it's only with 2/3 majority of the Senate that the president can be overturned. Whereas your monarch, which arguably, like we know Biden stepped out of the race for possible mental faculty issues. What's to say that your reigning monarch, who is 80 something years old, doesn't have the same issues, and he doesn't even have the ability to veto it?
No. So I suppose it doesn't matter from that standpoint. He could be mad as a box of frogs because all he has to do is be able to sign. So it wouldn't actually.
If it went to the prime minister, like it would almost match what the United States has, and that'd be fine if the prime minister actually had the ability to veto it.
Yeah, which he doesn't. He needs a majority to do that. So if he has some rebels within his party that don't vote for what he wants to happen, then there's a good chance there, without a decent majority, that anything he wants to do just doesn't go through. And that's where Parliament breaks down. And we've seen that, Stewie, haven't we, over the last few years, where that has happened, does happen, and causes some nightmares. It happened with Brexit a lot, didn't it?
It did, and let's be honest. When it comes to the British, the madder and more eccentric someone is, the more they're actually liked by the outside world, anyway. So
yeah, that happens in the United States too.
Well, you've only got to look at our recent candidate selections, haven't you? We're getting a bit deep there, but I mean, I suppose the only other thing I want to throw in there, and obviously the UK government make rules for the United Kingdom, but some of this stuff is devolved down into the Scottish Parliament. The Scottish Parliament have the ability to make local laws and local changes, very similar to what you have at state level. Same with Wales, and same with the Northern Ireland Executive, which is just. And you might not believe this, but for years and years and years, Northern Ireland didn't actually have a governing body. It was years, wasn't it, Stewie, that they didn't actually have an executive up there.
It got devolved again recently,
yeah.
And then they couldn't agree on that, could they?
No, I never quite.
They were sitting there for ages without.
I never fully understood what the hell was going on there. Why somebody didn't just want to take control of it and start sorting it out. But that just devolved. That just basically revolved back to Westminster to make all the decisions. But obviously, Stuart, yours is ever so slightly different, isn't it? I mean, technically, you're part of the UK.
Yeah, it's well, no, we're not. That's the thing. We're part of the British Isles, but we're not part of the UK. We have the states of Jersey, just like the Guernsey people have the states of Guernsey, although they use smaller words because they're not as clever as us.
No.
And no, obviously. And
apologies to anybody from Guernsey. If one of the three, if
how
one
can
of
you
the
get
three,
smaller than states?
It's in our constitution. We're allowed to hate each other.
Yeah.
So with us, we have the states, which there are the upper bodies, if you like, lieutenant governor, and things like that. But we have 12 parishes here, of which we end up with a constable that's elected for each parish, and they represent us in the states. And then there's deputies, and usually each of the parishes put through some deputies. But they then go into the states as an island-wide thing, and there's been some arguments about how the voting goes here, because obviously you've got the likes of St Helier, which has got a much denser population than the other parishes, and they can always swing their deputies in there because they just got the number of votes to get in. But for the actual laws themselves, it's very, very similar. I mean, we do have our own law system. We make our own laws. It's probably true that a lot of them are taken from the UK laws, so if the UK do something, then at some point in Jersey, I think, that's not a bad idea, let's use it. A lot of the times things are just adopted anyway, but we definitely have our own laws, and we've got some very oldie ones that are, good old classic, funny ones that just never got taken out of the system, and they still exist in there.
Yeah, well, we've got
like that.
Every single swan on the Thames belongs to the king, and it's a criminal offence to kill one, and it's actually like a treasonous offence to kill a swan that's on the Thames.
It was only a few decades ago you couldn't buy petrol on a Sunday in Jersey.
That's gas for all of you Yanks over there.
So, are you allowed to pump your own gas or your own or your own petrol?
You couldn't do anything. I mean, even until recently, our Sunday trading laws were really tight. Where I forget which way it was, whether it was stuff that was made by hand could not be sold or something like that, and so basically town just shut down for a Sunday. Nothing was open,
That is insane.
Then it was nuts, and this wasn't that long ago, really. And it's started to change. But do you know what? In a way, there's a certain sort of like bit of romance to the whole thing that you've got this whole Sunday things just wind down, and it is quite neat. But
well, it was tradition for a long time for many countries and cultures. To basically shut down. It used to be like that in the United States. Places would shut down. You couldn't sell alcohol on Sundays. So it was definitely a cultural thing. Most people being Christians in those parts of the world, and it's definitely been a culture shift to see that come around, where businesses are usually still open on Sundays. There's some that aren't on the weekends, but usually most businesses are open on Sundays. You can do just about anything on a Sunday that you would want to as any other day. So,
God, madness. There would be riots if you couldn't sell alcohol in the UK on a Sunday.
Oh. Yeah, it's amazing what actually lives. I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that in Guernsey recently, only just recently, you're now allowed to marry outside of the direct family.
Really? No way. They don't have to be blood related anymore.
They don't have to be blood related anymore. I don't know. I mean, it could be rumors. Could be rumors.
Jesus, and
rumors are sick.
Unbelievable. We jest. Okay, I think we've done that to death. I think we've done that to death. How we go with that. I really enjoyed that. It's good. It's amazing that we've got some differences and some obviously major differences. We've got some differences, but we've also got quite a few similarities as well, which is I don't know, probably to be expected, because let's be fair, all the US is just an extension of the UK. Anyway, moving on to
whoa.
moving on.
We left you 250 years ago.
Yeah. And God, you wish you could come back. You want
copy paste.
Absolutely not.
Copy paste.
If only Control C and Control V were invented 200 odd years ago. But we're going to move on to our Star Trek topics of the pod now. This is one of my favorite things to do. We are going to talk about the best episodes from a series. The series that we've chosen today is Deep Space Nine. Now, I haven't told the panel this, but I am going to exclude one episode. I'm going to exclude one episode from it because I think it is an absolutely obvious one, and that is Way of the Warrior. Way of the Warrior is absolutely exceptional. It's got loads of battle scenes in it, and I think it is my absolute favourite, and it's the one that comes up at the top of most lists when we're talking about best episodes of Deep Space Nine. But we're going to talk about some of our favourite episodes, whether they're funny, whether they're just amazing. But Deep Space Nine as a series, and I mentioned this, I think it was on the inaugural episode of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek, that Deep Space Nine is my favourite series of everything that's come out so far in to do with Star Trek. I think it's so wholesome and just so together, and it was sort of the first one that actually became a story, wasn't it? It wasn't episodic. Do you know what I mean? It was continual. Each episode rolled into the next episode, rather than it being one story per episode, or obviously the odd two-parter that we saw. So, talk about DS9. Let's start with you, Candy. Give us one of your favourite episodes of Deep Space Nine and why you like it.
Probably one of my favorite episodes is the episode called One Little Ship, where the crew is investigating an anomaly with one of the runabouts, and they have the Defiant using its tractor beam against it to kind of like slowly let it into the anomaly to kind of get an idea of what all it's composed of, and then the Defiant comes under attack from the Jem'Hadar, and the runabout ends up miniaturizing to like several centimeters big.
Yeah.
Where and then throughout the episode, they're using it. Go ahead, sorry.
It flies around like engineering, doesn't it? It goes in like in all the ducts and all that sort of stuff, doesn't it? It's a really good episode.
Yeah, it reminds me of that of the old movie, The Fantastic Voyage, where they miniaturize a ship to go inside of the person's body to find out what's wrong with them and destroy whatever is causing him to be sick or why he's in a coma. It reminds me a lot about that movie.
Yeah, so good. so good. Honey, I Shrunk the Shuttlecraft. That's what they should have called it, shouldn't they? I think that'd have been really good. No,
right.
Fantastic episode. I really like it. I think they do really like it. Blows up panels, doesn't it? And isn't that the one where O'Brien and Bashir actually go into the computer and they're trying to find like a G6 left chip, and they're trying to say, well, how on earth do I know what this type of chip looks like when I'm an inch tall? And they're trying to like fix stuff out the inside the computer, and they've got to move wires that are like the size of like a house, where normally you just pick it up with two fingers. Oh, absolutely superb episode. Really like that. What about you, Stewie?
Way of the Warrior. I thought that was a
brilliant.
The top of my list was Empok Nor.
Good episode.
Nor, where they go off to the other station. It was O'Brien, Nog, and Garak, and I loved Garak. Garak was probably one of my favourite characters on
your spirit animal.
He was my spirit. Do you know what? It was just it was an onion thing. He had layers.
Okay.
He had layers, and it was when the Kardashians used to say to the Kardashians,
Kim and Kylie,
used to say to the Federation guys, he used to say, he's a really dangerous man, and what is he? He's a tailor.
Tailor, yes.
You know, but it's just the way that he always used to allude to things, and he'd say. There's a great quote of his. It will come to me later, but it's a really, really good quote of his. But the fact is, it's the story really is about him, isn't it? And it proves that there is actually substance to all the things that people say about him, because he's basically a killing machine.
Yeah.
And he sort of reduces back to his primal self, if you like, hunting down the other Kardashians.
Because they were
on the
left in
station.
stasis, weren't they? They were like left. They were like left in
yeah.
stasis on the ship, and he just sort of turned into like this murdering psychopath, didn't he? For something that was obviously left on the station. And I mean, talking about Garrick, what a character. And bearing in mind, yes, he was a main character. He wasn't a mainstay in every single episode all of the time, but I think he was one of the best developed characters in the whole show. And I think his relationship with Julian, because there was actually a rumor, wasn't there, that he fancied Julian. That's on like some of the Trek forums and things like that. That there was actually something going on, and Garrick really wanted to get a bit randy with Julian. And I mean, whether that's true or not, we'll never know.
Mentioned. It was always mentioned that that he was this sexuality wise he was, and I think he actually said, because I when I was looking up the episode, I think he famously said that he was omnisexual. That's the way he wanted to play the character.
Yeah, that just goes over my head. I don't know what any of these things mean anymore. But I suppose omni is because he don't care what race they are either. That might be a Star Trek specific brand of sexuality.
That's
We
what
never
it
know.
was, I think. Means all, yeah.
All.
So, but you say that it's interesting that you say that he had, that there was a lot of focus on him and all this, and yet at the end of it all, we actually knew very little about him. We still didn't know for sure. Even when the Kardashians came back and took the station back. Kardashians, and and he sort of like went back under their employ to some degree, and then he didn't know how they was going to be accepted and all of this thing, and they obviously valued his abilities, and there was always that level of respect there, even if they didn't necessarily like him, which says a lot for what he must have been able to do.
Yeah, quick trivia. What was Garrick's first name?
Elim,
yeah, well done.
Elim, yeah.
Well, that's my trivia out the way for the next podcast that I was going to ask people to answer because you got it. But no, outstanding episode. Really, really like that one. Silvers?
I'm gonna go with season 3, episode 22. This is called Explorers. This is the episode where Sisko and Jake are making an ancient Bajoran spaceship.
Yes.
And they are essentially testing an 800-year-old legend about how the Bajorans were able to travel to Cardassian
with no
space. Yeah, exactly. They're able to travel to Cardassia pre-warp, and they built all this completely authentic and tested it, and they actually found I believe it was like a substream or a subspace stream kind of that like pushed them into warp with how their ship was designed to basically kind of like carry the
solar winds. It was like solar winds, and basically it had sails, didn't it, on the ship that allowed it to obviously traverse through space. And like you say, it hit like a slipstream that obviously allowed them to get there, and they were able to do it. No, I thought that was a really good episode and a really good one, because Jake didn't want to go originally, did he? Do you know what I mean? I think anybody go on.
He wasn't excited. I don't think Sisko was letting him have his pad with him. There wasn't going to be a replicator on board, so it was looking a bit grim for Jake going on this journey, and he actually turned out to really enjoy it because they actually did accomplish what they were after. And in the end, the Cardassians revealed, oh yeah, we actually did know that the Bajorans landed here a long time ago, and they revealed the crash site and all that.
Yeah, because Gul Dukat actually welcomed them, didn't he? He said, "Welcome to Cardassia," didn't he? And they had fired loads of stuff from the Galor ships, didn't they? torpedoes and things to actually make it look like fireworks and stuff when they arrived. So no, it was quite a nice. Bearing in mind they were enemies and they never really got on. It was quite a nice little ending for them, wasn't it? So no, I think that's a really good episode and a really cool, like, sort of look back to a technology that we've never talked about, explored, and never mentioned again. So my first one's going to be Far Beyond the Stars. So this is season 6, episode 13. Far Beyond the Stars is the episode where Cisco is having flashbacks into where he is a writer. So he's obviously flashing back to that period, and then he is a writer in this older time, which looks to be sort of like 1930s, 1940s, New York.
Based on the storyline, it was in the 50s, but yeah.
Oh, was it the 50s? Sorry, I wasn't 100%. So yeah, based in the 50s, and he played like a science fiction author. I think it was called something like Benny Russell or something like that. And it sort of explored the idea of racism. It was nice that obviously Cisco was looking back, whereas this guy was looking forward, sort of designing the model, and he drew pictures of like Deep Space Nine, and he had them written all over the walls, and he thought he was going a little bit mad because he was like a bit of like dreaming about all this. But I think the racism element of it, because they said that obviously a black writer won't ever be able to make like the front page of something, or said you can't do that really because you're a black writer and stuff, and I think they explored that really well. So it was a really good sort of exploration, and I do like a flashback episode where they go to real times in history. And I thought it was a really good one. Candy, have you got another one?
An honorable mention that I had was in season 3, episode 9, Defiant, where Jonathan Frakes makes a guest star appearance, not as Will Riker, but as Thomas Riker, where he steals the Defiant to take it back to the Maquis and the I'm trying to remember the rest of the episode there, but
no, because he conned Kira thinking that he was William. Wanted, he said, "Oh, come and show me." And then obviously because he's exactly the same as William, that he was able to obviously use his fingerprints and stuff like that to actually start the ship, wasn't he? And then stole it. And it was a really good. I like them sort of controversial episodes. Like you say, yeah, he stole it because he would become a member of the Maquis.
Thomas had joined the Maquis at that point in time. Yeah.
So no, really good. I like that. I like it when there's a little bit of a twist to it. And that goes back to what I was talking about before about a side character that I think had more character development in it. But basically that was the only other episode, other than where we discovered that Tom Riker actually existed. That was the only other one from memory that he was ever in. So 2 episodes where we used basically a like-for-like copy of one of the most famous characters in the entire show. I think that could have had a lot more legs, couldn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree. Stewie, got another one?
Yeah, I have, but I also found that quote, and it was a classic Bashir Garrick moment, and it was when Bashir asks Garrick, out of all the stories that he's told him, which ones were true and which ones were lies, and Garrick says, "My dear doctor, they're all true." And Bashir says, "Even the lies?" And he says, "Especially the lies." and it was the delivery.
Yeah,
it's such a good meme too.
Yeah, really good.
Such a good one, especially the lies. Yeah, my honourable mention is the Moose, and I spoke about this when we did the subject on favourite side characters with Luxana Troy.
Yeah,
and it's there. I just love the interaction between her and Odo when he's basically falling apart, literally. And I don't know why it's such a good one, but I just thought it was, and it's an episode that I always remember. And I like. But it's even with all the other stuff happening, it's almost specifically that interaction between them two that makes that entire episode, and I feel it deserved an honourable mention.
Oh, definitely. Silvers?
I've actually got 2 that I think cannot go unmentioned.
I know you're going to mention the one that I want to mention, but go on.
Little Green Men is the first one I'll mention.
Amazing.
It's the episode where Quark ends up in 1947 America, Roswell, New Mexico, Area 51. This could be the start of all of the UFO sightings of Roswell that any American is likely to be fairly familiar with, but it's such a hilarious episode because in the process of getting there, his universal translator is broken, so he's just constantly hitting himself in the head. He is making a fool of himself in front of these humans, but they just think that he's trying to communicate.
Yeah. Obviously, he's like banging his head, isn't he, trying to make his universal translator work and stuff like that, and then they start mimicking him and thinking it's actually something.
Yeah, exactly. And he's thinking, oh, these humans are it's quite stupid.
Yeah, humans
or whatever. Yeah,
yeah.
That's the way that he would say it.
That was the one where Quark actually got his own ship, didn't he? He got it off like his cousin or something, like cousin Gala. He got it off cousin Gala. Yeah, so
who had his own moon.
Yeah, he did, and the ship didn't
sealer.
work, did it? The ship didn't work properly.
Hence why it went into 1947 America.
Yeah, because they were taking Nog to Starfleet Academy. That's why they were going to Earth, want it at the time. No, really good. What about another one?
The Americans would yell at me if I didn't mention this one. Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite, Season 7,
brilliant.
Episode 4. Cisco's Deep Space Nine crew forming a baseball team against the Romulans. And it's essentially, if I remember correctly, it's a decision of, are the Romulans actually going to get involved in the Dominion War?
Yes.
And they decide it with a baseball game. And the Romulans are thinking, oh, we're physically... Are they Vulcans?
The Vulcans are the ones that are actually play baseball.
Okay. They are
Correction.
all... Fair enough. They are all thinking, oh, we're physically stronger. We are mentally more fit. We can easily defeat these humans. And Cisco's crew has more passion. And even with all of the quirks among their team, because they've, Kira's there, Worf is there, Rom is there, and his wife Lita.
Yeah.
So it's quite the team that they fit together, but they managed to win the game.
It was so good as well. And it gave us one of our best ever Worf lines, because we're all sat there going, hey, better, better, better. And then Worf just stands up all proud and goes, death to the opposition. One of the best Worf lines in the whole of Star Trek. One of memorable bits of Star Trek. No, absolutely amazing. Love that. I love the fact, again, that they're bringing something that's actually relative to, obviously, more to US than anywhere else. Nowhere else really plays baseball, I think, that's massively into Star Trek. But yeah, no, really nice to see that. Really, really good episode. And it was nice to see a non-spacey type battle between two versions of the Federation as well. It sort of bleeds back to when on Candy's favourite series on Enterprise, where the Vulcans saw themselves as the higher power, didn't they? They looked down on humans as being like, again, as second-class citizens, didn't they?
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, no, really, really good one. Really like that, and I'm glad that they did win in the end. I thought it was a really good bit of development for the likes of Rom. I thought he was really good. I thought Odo was a fantastic referee when he was practicing his moves in his office. I thought it was...
Who did he send off? He sent someone off, didn't he?
Cisco.
Yeah, it was Cisco, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, he sent Cisco off.
Sends him off
for touching him. He touches it. Yeah, it was so good. I really liked it. He really took his job seriously. I like that one. I'm going to throw two honourable mentions in there, and one of them is going to be akin to our missing panelists tonight. Anybody guess?
Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah. Trials and Tribulations. And
I had it on my list.
And I want to cover this on two reasons. The first thing was, it was just a brilliant episode. It was just a really good, it was fun. It was a story that everybody knows about. Everybody likes the Tribbles. Do you know what I mean? As much as they're a pain in the backside, it was just really good. But I also want to pay a massive, massive due to how cleverly they integrated the characters into the old scenes and the shots. Nothing looked out of place, did it? Nobody looked like they shouldn't be there. The work that they must have done in editing to have
So well done.
To have Kirk sat there while they're all stood in the line getting a rollicking for I can't remember what exactly it was now, but for getting a rollicking for doing whatever they were doing, and to have the cast of Deep Space Nine sat there with some of the cast of the original series in there, and it was just so well done. It was just seamless. It was an absolutely seamless crossover, and obviously it was nice to think that obviously Jadzia was actually remembers that time as well. So obviously, because her symbiont was obviously still alive during that time. So I just thought it was a fantastic episode, and I really, really liked it. Now, the other one that I want to bring, has anybody got any more comments on that? Obviously, while we pay homage to Minnie.
The rollicking was due to the fight in the canteen, wasn't it?
Of course it was. Yeah, they had a big scrap, didn't they? And again, they did that so well. Bearing in mind that was an action scene, it looked like it was still part of the original series again. You know what I mean? It looked like they'd just taken it off and that those actors were actually there doing it. It was just so cleverly done, and as well as a really great part of the story. And my final one that I'm going to do is the Magnificent Ferengi. So this is Series 6, Episode 10. The Magnificent Ferengi is the episode where they go to Terok Nor and they take a hostage. They're trying to swap him for Moogie. Do you remember? So they swap the Vorta for Moogie. They're trying to release her, and they end up killing him by accident, and they have to program him. They have to program him with implants, and he walks like an idiot and just starts walking into a wall. Because they're not doing it very well. Nog's programmed him, and he just sat there headbutting the wall for about 5 minutes while they're trying to escape and to try and get out. I thought there was some tremendous Ferengi episodes. Every episode that had the Ferengi in it were absolutely brilliant, and I'm so glad that they did that huge U-turn, because the Ferengi, I don't know if you know this, little bit of Trek trivia for you, the Ferengi were the original antagonists on TNG. That's who they wanted to be, the Romulans. They wanted them to be the big adversary between them. But how terribly it was portrayed. And obviously Quark, Armin Shimmerman, who played Quark, hated his performance as the Ferengi in that first episode, because he wasn't playing Quark, he was playing one of the other Ferengis in that episode of The Next Generation. And he hated it that much that it was actually Armin Shimmerman that sort of come up with the idea to have the Ferengi the way we know and love the Ferengi from Deep Space Nine. So a little bit of Trek trivia for you there. But no, I thought Magnificent Ferengi, really good episode, really, really light-hearted, obviously for them to try and free Quark's mother. Has anybody got any more honourable mentions?
I could talk for another hour, so we better wrap this up.
Go on. I say, give us one more. Give us one more.
There are so many good episodes of Deep Space Nine. To go for one more, I think I will have to go with Season 6, Episode 7, You Are Cordially Invited. And this is Worf's and Jadzia's wedding. I think it's a great mix of their cultures. Jadzia being dressed up for a Klingon wedding, so we get to see that part of the Klingon culture that isn't really brought about. We see the honor and everything else that the Klingons are so adamant about, but this is something that is different than we usually see with Klingons.
Very, very big culture shock, wasn't it, between them? Because Jadzia was like an honorary Klingon, wasn't she? Do you know what I mean? She did all the stuff with the old hat Klingons, like when she went and retrieved the Sword of Kahless with them from when she was Curzon and stuff like that. So she had that traditionalist nature, but she was also quite rebellious and stuff with it, and she wanted to be known as her and not as a Klingon with it, but she respected Worf's views as well. No, I thought that, again, really good episode, but I think we could make a 12-hour podcast on fantastic episodes from Deep Space Nine. But thank you so much to everybody that was on the panel. Please, everybody, remember that we are available on all major podcast platforms. Please leave us a 6 out of 5 star review if you are watching us on Apple or on Podbean, where you are able to actually leave us a review. That would be amazing. Join our Discord. Links to all that is in the episode description down below. You can access all of the links for all of the fantastic tools created by Stewie Doo, all the charts that are created by Silvus and helping to maintain by Silvus. You can access all of that from our Discord, as well as just chat with the team. Check out all of our other channels as well. You can find me, It's Lube, on Twitch, and Mini Mabel on Twitch as well for when we stream our Star Trek Fleet Command stuff. You can find me on YouTube as well at It's Lube. Give us all your feedback, send us your questions, and give us all the topics for future shows. And consider, I mentioned this at the start, consider becoming a member. Help contribute financially towards the upkeep and the development of this podcast as we make this bigger and bigger as it goes along. You can get that for a small amount of just $3 a month. You can help contribute, and you can access all of that at itslube.com, and that's where you can access all of our content. Everything is available at itslube.com, as well as all the merch that is expertly curated by Candy White. All fantastic stuff out there. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who is already a member. So I want a huge thank you to Minnie, Antares, Sorella, Deja, Trek Diva, Andy, KKC, Moth, Dr. Iron Chef, and Star Ocean. Thank you so much for being members of the channel. It really, really means a lot to me to know that that's there. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic, fantastic rest of your day. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Stewie. Thank you to Silvers. Thank you to Candy. Have a brilliant day, everybody. And remember that absolutely everything is better with lube. Take care. Have a wonderful evening.